be able to just really stay in love with what you do and keep the passion and keep the sort of that teenage kind of like feeling of like, oh, this is just my favorite thing in the whole world, and I can't believe I get to do this, you know.
Willkommen, schön, dass du wieder dabei bist bei einer neuen Episode der Gedankendealer. Heute mit dem großartigen Charlie Grant. Deswegen werde ich auch auf Englisch sprechen. Charlie ist groß geworden in Holland, in Amerika und UK, hat in London studiert und ist professioneller Musiker. Und wir interviewen ja immer Menschen, die die Welt ein Stück weit besser machen oder wo wir das Gefühl haben, sie sind sehr inspirierend und haben einiges erreicht in ihrem Leben. Und Charlie ist so ein Mensch, weil er ein großartiges Herz hat und mit seiner Musik sehr viele Menschen berührt. Und wir haben vorher in der Community so ein bisschen gefragt, was interessiert euch denn? Insbesondere bei Charlie, beziehungsweise auch, wenn es um das Thema Musiker oder die Musikindustrie geht. Ich werde die Fragen hier und da einfließen lassen und ansonsten freue ich mich einfach auf ein ganz normales Gespräch with a good friend.
Hello.
So, hi.
Hi.
It's amazing that you're here when you're performing live. It's amazing and I can see something magical is going on. So that's why I wanted to have you in the podcast.
Thanks so much.
For such a long time. Maybe we start as we always start. You give us a little insight of where are you right now?
Berlin. I've moved over here 2015, I believe.
From London, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I started to come to Berlin because of music in 2010, end of 2010. So actually 10 years ago, which is crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Time goes by so fast,
yeah,
doesn't it?
It's mad.
Wow.
And it was cool. I sort of very quickly developed like a second home, and it was definitely a very creative time, meeting lots of new people and meeting new people to collaborate with, and developing this kind of second life professionally. And obviously that became, I met my now wife.
Who's also been in the podcast.
Yeah, indeed.
Jules Grant.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was kind of a big life change, which I suppose is still kind of ongoing, really.
Yeah.
But creatively, and I'm sort of involved in developing projects more that I'm kind of intrinsically part of. Because what I've done mostly as professionally with music is writing songs for other people.
Like a ghostwriter?
Yeah, pretty much.
How can you maybe give us a little insight about how that works? Because to me, this is all a blur. I have no idea how it works. So are people hiring you? Is there like a data bank where people can choose from different ghostwriters, or are you offering your services?
Well, it's mostly through music publishers.
Okay.
So like my first break in music was when I got assigned a publishing deal with EMI Music Publishing back in...
I even know that.
Yeah, big names.
Yeah, cool. Let's do the name dropping now.
Yeah, indeed. It was great actually because it was something that my mum and dad were able to kind of go, oh, I've heard of EMI.
Yeah.
So it was the first time.
I even have the logo in my mind now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like, see, I've done something real.
Cool.
Cool. So, yeah, that was like my first kind of thing that happened.
You were 31 at that time.
Yeah.
That is very successful. I mean, isn't it, for being 31?
I mean, these days, not really. I was actually quite old.
Okay. I don't know. Yeah.
Because it's crazy because getting off the topic a bit, but I'm always blown away by a lot of the artists that I meet in Berlin who are like 19, 20, and they've moved to another country, they're organising tours, they're flying to LA, they're doing all this amazing stuff. And at 19 or 20, I was just completely head in the clouds, really. Like completely into music, but like professionally just like a dreamer, a full-time dreamer, but not really having the wherewithal to turn it into anything concrete or real, or going and having meetings.
19, 20, I had different.
Yeah, so it took me a while. I was I guess like in some ways a late bloomer in terms of like turning the kind of passion for music into like a drive and having a sort of strategy or whatever. So it kind of, my 20s were spent like playing in bands, playing guitar with various people and writing songs and doing demos and sort of living that life, but it didn't really turn into anything where anyone was like giving me money in any real sense until I was like, about 30-ish.
And you've studied, but you did not study music in London. What did you study?
I went to university to study anthropology.
Okay.
Yeah.
And were you always planning on becoming a professional musician, or?
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah, that was. Okay. I mean, that was the plan, but I didn't have a. Like I said, I didn't really have a sort of a strategic kind of like ABC kind of way of going about it. It was, I think that's how it goes. You learn while doing, you know, you learn while failing, you learn while everything is happening, like the things that go well, the things that don't go well. It's sort of a process, and it can take a really long time.
But I think it's the more natural way, to be honest.
Yeah, I think
it's probably it's just my way of doing things still. You know, I learn while I do things. And exactly. I know there are a lot of people who need to plan out and have this strategy and tactic about where to go, what to do next, and then they learn. But I think it's to me, I can empathize with that a lot. Yeah,
I mean, that's a great quote, which is, being a musician is not a vocation, it's a condition.
Okay. Wow.
So it's kind of like, I think you have to really you have to want to be an artist in a quite a pure sense of just having that need to create and to express yourself, and the kind of making money and that side, the more nuts and bolts parts of life are secondary in a way.
Is that like a calling? Can I understand it like this?
I guess so,
that you feel in your inner self, in your system, that the urge, you want to express yourself?
Definitely. No, I'm sort of completely obsessed with music, really, and always have been.
When did it start? Like, your parents, were they musicians?
Yeah, I mean, I remember listening to the Beatles from the age of about 5 and 6, and really loving music and being really kind of affected by it. I remember, it even sounds a bit silly, but like, we had like the ABBA Greatest Hits record, and whenever the winner, and the winner takes it all, I would be like choking up because it was so sad. Oh, wow. It makes me sound like a really theatrical kid, which I don't think I was necessarily, but so I remember always being kind of affected by music a lot, and then when I was kind of discovered my own bands and my own artists that I loved when I was about 10 or 11, and kind of got all like had my artists, and it wasn't just what was lying around the house that my parents had.
What was it?
The Police, Blondie, Prince, and then I got into kind of more rocky stuff like Led Zeppelin and more guitar-y things. So then the guitar became like the big focus.
And you play how many instruments? You play
guitar, bass, and singing. That's really it.
And what's the Scottish Dudelsack?
The what? Oh, the bagpipes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I should learn. It's my heritage. I do actually own some bagpipes, but
I remember you shown us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's I think, I don't know if my wife would really accept me practicing bagpipes. Yeah.
Well, she would love it. Whatever you do, I'm pretty sure she'll love it. So Charlie, tell me, you had your own band, and from my ideas of musicians, so I try to picture you as a young boy in a band, you know, being like rock music, stuff like that, playing. And do you have a dream to become famous as a band, or did you have the dream, no, I want to be an individual artist, like open the dream box from the time back then?
I think the initial dream would have been to be on stage and to be something of a rock star.
Yeah.
But I think it's like being an introvert. The kind of conflict that I've had then and sort of still have really is wanting to be creative, wanting to create art and to put it into the world. But then when it comes to the job of putting it into the world, that's a whole different skill set and different mentality, which is, you know, about being public and sort of look at me and kind of, and I'm the kind of person who, I'm just not a look at me kind of person. So I don't have that thing in me very much at all. So it's like performing is definitely like I have a love-hate relationship with it. And once I'm on stage playing, it's fine and I can get into that, but it's the idea of doing that isn't something that's really in me to like have a hunger for it. So I think in a way the fact that my first break with music was as a songwriter for others, it was kind of like I didn't really have an issue with that being the door that opened, if you know what I mean, because it's not being a performer, it's being very much behind the scenes. And you know, sometimes your name isn't even mentioned on the credits, it's just like you're helping write songs.
And you were not just helping to write songs, I want to be a little bit more concrete if that's possible. You were writing songs for quite some famous artists. Can you...
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the well-known names is like Simply Red, and then Melanie C, who's one of the Spice Girls. And in Germany, Michael Patrick Kelly from the Kelly family.
You still work with them. I wanted to talk about that later.
And,
so that means you got to the point where you must have noticed, by any is it modesty? By any sense of I'm holding myself back, I really have a gift here. I'm not just having a calling and a passion for something, but I also have a skill set because I get hired by very famous artists. So did that affect your way to push yourself a little bit, to come out of your introverted shell and try to get to the point where you work as an individual artist?
I think it's like, I definitely over time kind of felt like, I know what I'm doing here with this whole songwriting thing, you know. And the being an artist myself thing was more to do with needing to have a project or projects where there was no one else kind of directing how it sounded. Because when you're writing for others, it's really, you're there to provide a service. You know, it's not really about my vision, my taste so much, or what I want to say about the world. Obviously, I bring those opinions and those ideas into a session, but at the end of the day, it's somebody else's baby. It's someone else's product, if you want to look at it like that. So you're there to facilitate.
And you get like a briefing.
Yeah, and then you know it's and that's fine, and that's the kind of role you're in. So it's like very collaborative and very in a way, ideally, you're there just to support an artist who is really talented, but they just need some help. Or they're really young and they need their ideas just need to be kind of structured and put into shape, and kind of you're trying to bring things out of people. And facilitate that. That's at its best. I think that's the job. Description. But for me, it's to release stuff as myself was more just like, I just want to be selfish. I just want to, you know, I don't want to have to kind of, I don't want to collaborate. I want to be just, this is my thing. These are my ideas, how I see them, how I hear them. And it's like, if it's the sounds, if they're not like the cool sounds like this month, and who cares? It's like,
it's yours.
Because I think it's like, if you're gonna have a long career in music, or I guess in any creative field, if you're, you know, the financial side of it can be a bit up and down. So it's like, it's not like, okay, cool, I've got a very safe, cushy salary, and that allows me to live a certain lifestyle. It kind of comes and goes a little bit. It's
like a roller coaster.
So you kind of, exactly. So you kind of have to take, in a way, sacrifice on that front a certain amount of security, I suppose, or consistency. So the kind of counterbalance of that, I think, is that you need to be able to just really stay in love with what you do, and keep the passion, and keep the sort of that teenage kind of like feeling of like, oh, this is just my favorite thing in the whole world, and I can't believe I get to do this, you know. And that can sort of suffer, I think, if you don't sort of, it sounds a bit corny, but like protect the flame, you know, take care of that feeling of that initial spark.
How do you manage to do that?
Just releasing songs, like releasing music as myself, you know. Good. And so I'm the decider about how it sounds, how it, you know, how the artwork looks, how the production is, and everything. So there isn't any committee stuff going on, because, you know, oftentimes when I'm writing for others, the record will come out and it's like, okay, I wouldn't have done it like that at all.
And it's nagging probably a little.
And sometimes, I mean, in the early days, it would be really heartbreaking, because it's like, oh God, they've ruined it. We made something so beautiful and it's horrible now.
Oh no! Wow.
Put this really tacky beat on there, and they're just being so cynical about, it's just about getting on the radio, which of course they have to do that.
Yeah.
If it's especially with big label projects, it's like they have to. If they're spending a lot of money, they have to have a good chance to make some of that back.
Commercial in a way.
Exactly.
So it's to a lot of a big audience.
And it took a while for me to kind of like be okay with this, my role as being like providing a service.
So let me be direct. Are you okay with it now, or are you getting fed up by it?
I'd say both.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So that's the love and hate.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of. I don't take it personally anymore if a song comes out, and I don't it wouldn't be how I would do it.
Yeah.
But that's fine. But the fact is that the reason why I started to do my own projects was to kind of have an outlet and to have both.
Yeah.
Because
I think that's very clever.
Like if you're a photographer and you have your passions of what you want to take photos of and how you want them to look, that might not be the thing that makes you money. So you maybe end up doing a lot of weddings as a photographer because that's what pays, and that's great.
Yes.
But if you only do weddings for years, eventually you're going to be like, oh God, I don't want to see a camera ever again.
I can relate to it so much from a personal point of view, because when I talk about being a speaker, I've used to give talks for sales reps, teams, or corporate companies, and it was always a certain topic that was brought to me, and then I had to draw a storyline around it, but always to feed or to service them. Yeah. But it didn't even. Well, of course, it always contains something of your personality, but it not to the amount that it is today, So it's also, I can relate to that very much, that when I'm on stage and I talk about something from my heart, something that I feel that is my calling or that has an impact, it's such a huge difference, because then all the nervousness or introvertness, I would suggest, that might come into that. It just disappears because you feel like, okay, you're in your total 100% essence. Yeah. And it's just a flow state.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, and you are successful with what you're doing right now with your own songs, and you're releasing. And we've talked to some, I've asked some of our communities what they would like to know. So here are the questions. Okay. And I'm so happy that I can put it all on them. I would never come up with questions like that. So our prejudice about, I pictures about musicians. Do you have to have a lot of drama to be able to be very productive, or is that because many artists, like also writers, they use that sense of darkness sometimes to be able to release emotions and then channel it into their art?
It can be. I mean, I don't look for drama for sure, but I guess you inevitably experience things in life that are,
or you see things.
Yeah. So I mean, yes, I would say, I'm very lucky to be in a great relationship and have been for some years now. But obviously, some of my previous experiences weren't quite as harmonious, and those things have found their way into songs for sure. Yeah, absolutely. And you just have to look at the world around you, and there's lots to talk about. Good and bad. I mean, I think sometimes it's I can't remember who said it, but there's a quote from a poem or something where it's happiness writes white. So like happiness is kind of like an invisible pen. So if you're trying to create and it's just like the best day today, and I'm feeling really, really good, everything's cool. It's like it's nothing there. It sort of doesn't have any kind of grip in a strange way. Not, of course, everyone aspires to feel feel good as much as possible, but somehow you can kind of sink your teeth into darker stuff easier sometimes. Yeah.
And also, I think it's not just about putting the dark stuff out there. It's also about finding a healing way, in a way, through the music. Or not, healing is probably a little bit too high, but a sense of coping.
Yeah.
Is it that, like if you write something about it, and if you look at the world and the effect it has, how people, treating the world, and you listen to the music, it sometimes even, certain parts of the song might cheer you up by, just going with the tone of it, although the words are quite serious.
Yeah.
But I think it's a very humanizing way of dealing with even challenging emotions. Does it make sense in any way what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I think it can be really cathartic as the writer to channel difficult times in life into a song.
Yes.
And to kind of feel like you've encapsulated that feeling or that idea. And it's lovely when you hear from people that they've heard a song and it has talked to them and made them feel like less alone in a way.
Yes, because they feel connected.
Yeah, exactly. Because it can be so sort of, like maybe depression can be very isolating.
Yes.
And you can feel very much like you're alone in that space.
Yes.
And if you have an artist that maybe has had similar experiences and they've written about it, it makes you feel less alone. It's kind of, I think that's important.
And I'm amazed by, especially like topics like that, when I'm, especially when I'm very angry or very sad, and I find a matching song, and I had difficulties finding words for my inner emotion, and then I have the song, and it somehow just verbalizes or transfers whatever I feel. This is just the magic, what I was talking about earlier. So I think it's an amazing work you do, and
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I mean, it is cool when you just have those reminders, and it's great for kind of morale, I suppose, and motivation when occasionally those people, like actually weirdly enough, yesterday I went to I went to the doctor for a checkup, and she was making small talk. She's like, "Oh, what do you do?" and everything. I was like, "Oh, I write songs for a living." And she said, "Oh, who anyone I would know?" which is the classic question. And I said, "Oh yeah, I guess in Germany the biggest name is Michael Patrick Kelly from the Kelly family." And she said, "Did you write Friends or Family?" I was like, "Yes, yes, I did." And that's her favorite song. She's like, "Oh my god, that's amazing!" And like, "Thank you for writing this song." It's like the lyric is so like meaningful to her. That was kind of bonkers.
Wow.
And yeah.
So tell me a little bit about what are you doing with Michael Patrick Kelly at the moment? Because
we wrote together like just before Christmas again for his next record. He's just a really lovely guy. He's great, super talented. And speaking of songs about bigger themes, he's somebody who really wants to do that and actually can kind of somehow he has like enough kind of gravitas where he can get away with it. Because I think these times we live in, there's so much that people should be talking about in music. And in the 60s there was a whole kind of tradition of protest songs and anti-war songs, and it was a really big thing. And it feels like there's plenty of stuff to be angry and outraged by. Every day you look at the news and it's like, oh my god. But it seems like it's not as much of a thing as it could be. And it's hard. It's just difficult to not be preachy or to come across preachy and like
missionary.
Listen to me. I know. I have the answers. This is what you should be doing. And I think a lot of people avoid it for that reason. It's kind of like, it's a tough one. And he's someone he can own it and he can do it, and it's very convincing. Because I think he just has this very pure spirit where I don't know, that's part of his appeal. It's like somehow it just kind of cuts through that, and he's very humble and. So it's really fun writing with him because we can write about everything and anything, and he actually is very rare to kind of do the sort of love relationship topic, which is kind of like the kind of bread and butter of lyric writing, because there's obviously there's tons to say about it, and everybody can relate, to the good and the bad and the whatever of love relationships.
But that's probably the easy part, and I think it's great that you use your voice or your art. To try to connect to people in a way that is more important.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean,
and music to me seems like it can be very political in ways.
It can be, and I mean, I think it's maybe it's due for a comeback. I mean, I think it is coming back, and it needs to. And I feel like I definitely could do more.
You feel?
Lyrically, yeah. Just trying to, like not write songs so much about my inner world. It kind of almost starts to feel a bit self-indulgent when if you don't kind of get out of the comfort zone a bit. So that's my kind of mission for this year, is to try and write more about bigger themes and themes that affect everybody.
What would be the themes that would...
Well, I'd love to write a protest song about, climate-based stuff, and I have to confess I haven't done it yet, but I really want to try. I think it's like you just have to write a bunch of songs and not worry about it too much, and then maybe one of them it has the right tone, and says it in a way that isn't kind of like, here's what you should do, everyone. Like I have the answers, because of course I have no.
And I think this is where it comes in, your personal perspective again, because I think to be able to write about something which is a society issue, to not be missionary for me would have to imply that you imply that you also share a little bit of yourself, because once this
talk about your own sort of failings in this,
not just failings, but also about your thoughts, because once you put it personal, I think that it opens a whole new understanding for the other people, and they are not just feeling, okay, now here's Mr. Charlie Grant, telling us how the world should look like, but here he is, and he tells us how it affects him, and why it makes him angry, or why he wants it to change, because he's a dad, for example, and he doesn't want his daughter to grow up in this kind of society, or because the way he grew up. And so I think it's always, to me, good to put a little bit personal.
And I think if with music, if you're writing songs like with other people or for other people, maybe it kind of slightly takes the edge off your voice. Because you're not just kind of digging into your own soul and being very honest, about your own. I don't know. I'm trying to find the right words, but it's sort of like a smoothing of the edges kind of thing, where you're trying to make something that's kind of palatable for someone else to say. So it's. I think it's been a while since I really just wrote on my own, and kind of. It's almost a bit scary to think, okay, what's going on in my soul? Like go to somewhere quiet and avoid the distractions and go, what do I want to say? I've kind of haven't done that for quite some time, because my job is always collaborative. It's always co-writes. It's always 2 or 3 people in a room. And it'll be very interesting to do that. I guess. Because you've been conditioned in a way, and also been successful with that, so that primes you. And now it's probably interesting and challenging at the same time to really look deeper and say, definitely. Now when I have the real chance, there's this, you read that lately, I've read that so many times, if you would write about something, now to refer to you, and you would know it will be a success. What would it be? And I think it needs time for you to answer that, because that takes a lot of deep looking. Absolutely, how it's reflection. It's like meditation, where it's kind of distraction is just so kind of in our faces all the time, and with phones or family or all the ways that we kind of, I think, avoid confronting our feelings, our inner world, where you can constantly kind of keep it at arm's length. I think songwriting can be, if you commit to it, to just doing something that's truthful and maybe isn't very commercial or isn't for anybody else, takes some discipline and takes a bit of courage, I suppose. I think courage. That's So that's another question. What about? And you can say stop, Julie, or off camera, I tell you about it. But the picture about artists always have to be
drunk on drugs to be creative? Is that something?
No, I think these days, especially with younger artists, it's the opposite. They're getting up at 6 to go for a run, and like it's all like wheatgrass and smoothies and those days of like the kind of
meditate.
the Udo Lindenberg sort of like that model of the rock musician or the pop star or whatever being completely off their heads. I think it's kind of, maybe it'll come back, but for now it doesn't seem to be a thing.
Did you have those times?
I mean, not connected with music. I mean, just like in my 20s,
But not connected with music? So
not
with
so
music?
much, no, just socially.
Okay.
I guess the 90s in London were quite a kind of hedonistic time, generally speaking.
Okay.
Partying and so on. But it wasn't kind of to do with being in a band. It was just, that's what you did, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, because I would just imagine when it comes to having the courage or having finding your real true inner self, like your core, which might be a little scary. You know, some people might even use some substances to have an easier access to that.
Maybe.
And then be able to. So that's why.
Yeah, I think it's with artists. I think the job of a songwriter for others, again, I think it's speaking of kind of going into yourself and trying to find something that's really authentic and true. That's part of the job, writing with others, because if I have a session with an artist and maybe they're a little bit hesitant or reserved, and they're not really willing to kind of open up about what's going on in their life, sometimes it's like, okay, well look, we came here to write songs, let's write a song. So I'll kind of just go into like steamroller mode and just like, well, look, if no one else is going to do it, then I'll do it. So you kind of just go, okay, here's some chords, here's a melody, here's some lyrics, bang, bang, bang.
Wow.
And you write a song, and it's perfectly sort of serviceable, functional song. But you kind of know that they're not going to ever use it because they're not invested in it. And there's not enough of them in the thing that you created. So it's kind of like
the soul.
Yeah, and it needs to feel like it's their story in a way, even if they've had a lot of help telling the story. And I've had sessions with artists who haven't. If you analyze the song and like, okay, who wrote that line? Who wrote that line? Who wrote the melody? Who wrote the music? They didn't necessarily do much of that, but they kind of drove the whole session with like, here's what's going on in my life. This is what I want to talk about. This is what's making me sad or angry or whatever. Yeah. And you just kind of get involved in this conversation, and you're sort of, again, like trying to draw it out of them and facilitate them telling their story. So you're a facilitator, basically. Yeah.
And translate.
And they, exactly. And they direct it, and it's like, oh no, I wouldn't say that. Yeah, okay, scrap that idea. Yeah. Move on to something else. Yeah. So it's kind of like a snake charming job where you kind of trying to bring things out of people, and sometimes when they haven't really written it, you want to make them feel like they've written it.
Yes.
Because then they'll feel like it's theirs, and if they don't feel like it's theirs, then it's almost guaranteed that they won't use the song.
I like the term snake charming.
Yeah,
I'm gonna steal that. It's very similar actually to one of my close friends, Katrin, who is an author, and she's also a ghostwriter, and she describes this way of writing in the same way as you do. That sometimes she has someone and she can sense there's something, behind the story, and she wants to get this into, and then but it's also, she says, quite of a fine line, because sometimes you get the people to open up for a moment, and then you just write it, and then afterwards they say no, it's too much, because it's too close, and it really put like a mirror in front of them. Do you experience that too?
Sometimes I would say, like, I probably can't really mention who exactly, but there was one artist where we wrote a song about kind of family relations. Yes. It was a bit like a therapy session. Songwriting sessions often are like a bit like therapy sessions. Yeah, I can understand. Where you kind of go, like, you in an ideal world, people are open enough and willing enough to kind of share some stuff about their lives.
In an ideal world.
And often it's like people you literally just met half an hour before, so it can be a little weird and a bit awkward for some people who aren't used to it. especially like if it's, say, some artist who's 20 and I'm probably the same age as their dad. Like, and it's like, wait, you want me to tell you all about my like boyfriend who's cheating on me? Like, come on, I'm not, So it can be a little.
Yeah.
A lot of it is about like the trust thing and kind of making people feel like they're going to be respected and sort of listened
and
to
safe.
and kind of encourage. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's times when you've written a song and you kind of everyone piles in on the idea of like, yeah, and another thing, and like my brother was annoying in this way, and my sister like blah blah blah. Anyway, like family dynamic stuff, and then you kind of look at it and go, yeah, actually, maybe we'll just sort of mellow that out a touch here, or make it a bit vaguer.
Yes.
Yeah, so that can happen.
No, I have even much more respect for your work, what you're doing, because like you're a facilitator, you're like a therapist, an artist, you challenge, and you not just write the words, you also write the melody.
Yeah.
So there was another question actually someone asked. How often do you find artists that are able to write their own songs from the written terms as well as with the melody? So is that common, or do you usually have like a gift for one? Or because I know you do both, and I wouldn't think that it's normal to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, you do find sometimes people just have an amazing gift for melody.
Yeah.
And they just sing things, and it's like, oh, that's great, like immediately. And then the job is to kind of fit words to the melody.
Or the other way around.
Yeah. It's tough. I mean, I think with writing, it's usually like, I find it's not so structured. You try to feel it out every time with people, where it tends to be like stuff just comes together, like the lyric and the melody. Ideally, that's how it happens. And a lot of times, if the lyrical idea isn't really kind of taking shape, and you have some music and a beat, so you'll kind of go, okay, let's just sing gibberish into a microphone.
Gibberish?
Just like nonsense, like just to kind of, I don't know what the German word for it would be, but just sort of
Quatsch.
Phonetic kind of just stuff. So you just go up to, like, press record and just go up to the mic and just sing stuff. And often, like, there'll be some accidental nuggets of gold among whatever comes out. And there's a whole sort of style of songwriting where people just do that, and then you edit afterwards. So you do, I don't know, a few takes of just singing kind of any melody, any lyric, any just off like stream of consciousness. And then you go through it with more of an analytical kind of mind and just cut out the good bits.
Wow.
And then just edit that together and structure it so it's sort of pure sort of like right brain, left brain sort of separation. And that can work really well, but then sometimes, often, actually, like, you sing stuff that just sounds good but doesn't make any sense. And it sounds so good that you want to keep it. And often, I found out when I first started coming to Germany, writing in English, German writers would really want to keep their phonetic nonsense lyrics because it sounded really good. It was just pleasing to the ear.
Yes.
But it's like, it doesn't mean anything. Nothing. Like, it's
do you have an
just,
example?
I can't remember off the top of my head, but so I would be the sort of annoying guy saying, yeah, but it has to mean something. Like,
at least just a little bit.
And so I remember having a lot of those battles initially.
That is funny. It sounds a little bit like improvising theater, where you just come up and saying whatever. Do you sometimes lose the words when you're performing?
It has happened. I think it's like a muscle memory thing. I had a great quote. Me and Jules were watching this series Cheer on Netflix, which is about these cheerleaders in the US. And they have this coach who's this real, like, hard-ass lady. And she has this line that was like, practice it till you get it right, and then keep practicing it till you can't get it wrong, which I thought was really cool. Yeah. And it's like the muscle memory thing where you just keep doing something until your body knows how to do it, and you can be thinking about what you can have for dinner that night, and your body does it. Yeah.
Impressive.
And with lyrics, sometimes like in gigs, I'll be like, oh God, I don't know the next line. I don't know the next line, and then it somehow just comes out. So yeah, once in a while, but it's not
Wow. I know it's quite of a topic change, but I really want to talk to you about it. So because I know that you are taking your position quite serious, and you know how much of a responsibility you have as being publicly noticed. Put it that way, because so many people are talking wherever, and they don't have anything. They want to raise awareness to, and you wear your war child button here. Can you tell me a little bit about the War Child project and why, especially musicians, are involved?
War Child have a really long history of working with musicians going back to the 90s, and I guess that's when I first heard about them.
That long time?
Yeah,
okay.
In London, and it was they did this big charity record with like all the biggest bands of the time, like Radiohead and Oasis, I think Paul McCartney, and
wow,
it was a big deal, and like Coldplay I think were involved. So they really kind of made a big point of connecting musicians with this cause. So it was kind of, I remembered it from those days, and was asked to take part in some charity gigs through a friend who's working with them. And it's just partly, I guess, having a child myself just makes the whole idea of kids experiencing trauma so much more like viscerally close to home. The idea of my daughter being exposed to war is just unthinkably awful. But obviously my kid's safety isn't any more important than anyone's kid's safety. And there's so many parts of the world where children are growing up in these horrendous circumstances. So I think the work that they do is just like incredibly important.
Can you tell us a little bit about the work? So it's not just about having a charity concert. It's more.
My involvement is kind of, I guess, just trying to be involved in keeping that connection with musicians and the court and the charity.
Yes.
And Berlin is so full of new and exciting up and coming artists. I guess it's just trying to keep bringing people to the organization and introducing them, and maybe there's ways they can collaborate on putting on concerts or releasing records, but just kind of keep a vibrant kind of voice happening. People who can spread the word and advocate for War Child.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful work, and it's good that we are spreading the word, and the audience we're going to
Absolutely.
have. So next project of Charlie Grant, the individual artist, very famous, successful artist, musician here.
You're flattering me.
Yeah, I will. I am. I hope so. So what is your next big project, or what is your next plan? Like something open the dream box now?
Yeah.
It's going to be successful. What is it going to be?
I'm building up more projects where it's kind of like them, sort of my own kind of babies, I guess you'd say. Because with being a writer for hire, you can kind of go around doing co-writing sessions with various artists, like signed artists. Maybe you write a song or two or three, and you're lucky if maybe you get one on their record. So it's kind of this kind of quite dispersed feeling. Which is fine, but I feel like for me it's more rewarding to kind of really be developing something over time and really be in it and do like a body of work. And the way to do that for me at the moment is to sort of have my own projects, like my own artist projects. So I have a band called More Than Ruins that I'm in, and that's me. And
we're gonna put all that in the show notes.
Oh, great! Yeah, it's me and two friends, and myself and the singer Eula Escherhaus wrote a song a couple of years ago, and we thought it was really good, but neither of us is really a kind of producer in a technical sense, so we needed somebody to help kind of build a soundscape around it. So I brought in a friend of mine called Ainsley Adams, who did that, and he did a really wonderful job, and we liked it so much we were like, oh, we have to do something with this, and how are we going to do that, how are we going to present it? And I just saw this. It was an in-flight magazine, or I think EasyJet on a flight, and there's the magazine's always about travel.
Yes.
And it was an article about Athens, I think, like ancient, like this sort of, and the title of the article was More Than Ruins, because like Athens is more than ruins.
That is so great.
I was like, More Than Ruins, okay, great. There's a band name right there. So that was sorted quite easily, and we had a band name, and we had a song, and we hired a friend to do some photographs. So it's like, okay, we kind of have a thing here. So we released it and had a great response. So we did a video 2 weeks ago, and we're writing more songs as of like now, really. So that's building up, and then I have another one called Spirit Animal Kollektiv with my friend Jonathan Kluth. So we write and produce songs with every song has a different singer, like a different kind of undiscovered but very talented Berlin-based artist.
Okay, you always
temporarily so it's kind of us, it's us featuring someone else.
Cool. I like that concept.
Yeah, it's really fun. And the first song came out on Valentine's Day. It's called Embers into Fires. And so we have a lot more songs to release this year. And then I'm still releasing more songs like as myself.
Amazing.
Under my own name. So yeah, just like more of a deep involvement in projects.
Yeah.
Rather than just being this kind of, I'm here for a day and then I'm gone kind of feeling.
The funny thing is, it resonates so much in me, and I see you and I get totally excited, but you're such a modest person. It is so funny for me to watch you, because I think this is amazing, you know, like after doing this job for such a long time and now really have the courage to jump in and do your own concepts and projects and being successful, and the universe is who you are finding the people to do it with. This is great, Charlie. I'm really happy for you.
Thanks.
Amazing. Cool.
Thanks a lot.
Anything you say you want to... I always get that wrong. Is it draw awareness or raise awareness?
Raise awareness.
Raise awareness. Thank you. Anything you want to raise awareness to? Now you got the chance where you say, people, please. I know there's a lot we have to figure out.
Yeah, I mean, I think people who are somewhat on the left politically need to stop bickering and infighting, because that's why we lose elections. I know this is getting way too like heavy and off topic, but yeah.
That's your time.
But I guess with me, like, you know, my mum was American and I grew up in the UK. So sort of like, if I look at the political situation in either of those places, it's, you know, strange times and frightening times in a lot of ways. And I think Stephen Fry, who's a bit of a legend, a comedian and a writer and I guess a broadcaster and an actor, he said like, the problem isn't that so much the strength of the right, it's the weakness of the left. So people who are about social justice and environment and, you know, need to kind of gather behind the banner and kind of be more of a cohesive group, and, you know, not like all the infighting and all the kind of Twitter pylons and all the sort of there's like this purist thing going on these days where it's, you know, if somebody isn't like ideologically 100% on the page you want them to be on, then they're like nothing,
like
they just
thinking.
go on.
Yeah.
And it's sort of not very realistic.
Yes.
And it seems like people who are more on the right, they all wear the same hat and they're all in the same team, and they're very much like on point and they're very focused and ruthless, and you know, so that saddens me when I see people who are basically ideologically of the same mind, kind of fighting and bickering and failing to kind of coalesce. And I think that's a problem that we need to fix.
Yes, amazing. Yeah, and I think this is something, but we could open up a way new topic there. We need to teach our children, you know, that even someone is not 100%. I mean, it's all about diversity.
Yeah.
What it is, and if your left oriented mindset says, okay, but we don't agree on that point, and that becomes an issue, then you know it.
I think Twitter is part of the problem as a medium. You know, how can you express the fact that it's like a sort of a limited space for voicing an opinion. You know, and once people get kind of acclimatized to that way of communicating, like these little nuggets of opinion. It's like it's like overheated opinions. Often it's kind of hyperbole and
because you have to use all the superlatives words.
Exactly, and it's sort of almost like these little bombs of emotion and anger, and it's almost designed to provoke a sort of a heated response, I think. So it's kind of, people forget perhaps how to have this sort of nuanced discussion where it's like, okay, we agree on this, but we don't agree on that. And it's just the medium by which people communicate these days. I think it's very new, and we're still figuring out how to do it in a constructive way. And I think people will look back on these times and think, God, that was all a bit nuts, wasn't it?
I hope so.
And like, people say like Facebook is the new cigarettes. Like, people will look back and go, like, you watch Mad Men or a series like that based in the 50s, 60s, and everyone is chain smoking and
is a sexist.
And is a massive sexist. And it's like, okay, well, at least,
I can't watch Mad Men. I can't watch it. I know it's such a great show artistically. But it pushes so many buttons from me, so I can't. It triggers me in so many buttons. I just can't watch it.
I guess the world has moved on in some ways, but
let's hope it's going to move on, and people thinking a lot more diverse and being constructive and having open
and even a dialogue
discussions.
between people who are like
a dialogue.
People who are right leaning in their politics. It's there just needs to be more ways or sort of forums for people just to communicate in this in a real way, in a I guess a face-to-face way where I guess most people are naturally inclined to not upset somebody who's sitting opposite them. Like, there are obviously those people who are out there who are just like provocative and want to fight. But for the most part, you don't want to have an argument. You want to have, people are generally, I think, maybe I'm being horribly naive here, but like, a face-to-face discussion is generally going to be quite different to one that's carried out on something like Twitter, because you can be more heated and you can be like, fuck you, kind of in that format, and you're not going to get a consequence from that person either being upset or maybe wanting to punch you in the face, or you're sort of distanced from any sort of real human reaction.
And it comes with all the technical tools, you know. Just if you have a misunderstanding or an argument, I always say, don't write me. It's always me. Always talk in person, because it's what you said, the consequence, and it could just be even a look. There's energy flowing, and that changes the whole setting. And I think it should be more about a sharing and a deep listening rather than a battling through words. Because it becomes like a spiral, and people just, like you said, it heats up. And it's totally out of context if you watch the outcome out of it.
I don't know how I think it will, the balance will be struck. I think people, these days with anxiety and mental health struggles and isolation, it has to reach a point where people go, okay, what are we doing wrong, and how can we balance this out? And just that need for community. It's human. It's so in us.
We've just talked about it before we started the interview.
I think that's so crucial, and I think these smartphones are obviously incredible, like mind-bogglingly amazing invention, but it doesn't help us to have that, to feel that we're part of. We need to be part of something. We need each other. To put it in simple terms,
Wow.
I think it makes people feel like they're a bit of an island, even though it's sort of about communication and being part of a network. It's sort of, there's nothing to replace a real sense of community and connection. I think that's what people have been kind of starved of and encouraged to be suspicious of as well. Where you think your neighbor is like someone to just kind of ignore
and then look at all those attributes and
you already it's know sort of like Thatcher in the 80s saying there's no such thing as society. It's like this hyper individualistic kind of mentality.
And I have to be honest, to me sometimes it's challenging, to stay open and think broader than just to focus on yourself, because it's all about self-optimization and, doing more, be more productive and get your affirmations right and just become the better person
Yeah,
rather than become a better society.
wellness is a weirdly kind of capitalistic thing in a strange way.
Exactly.
Isn't it? It's sort of being the best,
Yes,
the best at
yes,
yoga,
yes,
the best
yes.
at like journaling. And
and it's not about that.
It's sort of like something you do to make yourself look great on Instagram. Like everyone does it.
Yeah,
these
and
days,
what's if you take that away? Yeah,
of course.
Yeah, amazing. I knew that I could talk to you in so many different ways, but I wanted to focus mainly as you as an artist, and I think it's beautiful that you are out there and that you are expressing yourself as a person and all your thoughts, and you're taking the courage and the responsibility to raise awareness.
Well, I need to do more. I need to do way more of that.
And you're doing already a lot, and I think it's beautiful what you're doing. Thank you so much for sharing and being so open and honest about it. And we'll put your songs, everything in the show notes. So whenever you have something, we can also update that. That would be amazing. And I would just say, if anyone has any questions to you, they could just write us. Right?
All right.
Yeah.
Of course.
And I know Charlie will be happy to answer any questions, politically, whatever. I would like to have someone from the right wing who watches us. And
when I was growing up, my mum and my brother were both very politically engaged, and I so wasn't. I just lived in my own rock music obsessed bubble. So it's it took me a few years to kind of get a bit more.
I sometimes wonder. I think I've. It's also quite recent. I don't know if it's the change in the world with me.
Having a child for you? Did that change things? Becoming a mother?
I think that's a big change. There was I was going to say about becoming a parent. Just forces you, I think, to look at the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And because you can't just focus on yourself any longer. You have. And
you play such a big part with your kids in introducing the world to them. They experience the world, under your guidance.
Yes.
And Coco, my daughter Coco is 4, and you naturally want to protect your children from all the awfulness out there, and I guess you have to a degree, but you can't also.
Exactly.
Eventually, they will know about things. And
I was just talking International Women's Day. And I don't know if you know that I'm also doing this podcast with a friend of mine who lives in South Africa. And we were thinking about, so what's going to be our today's topic on? I said, well, it's International Women's Day, so why don't we take this? And she said, I don't know if I'm such a strong feminist. I said, well, then it's going to be interesting, let's see. Because you're a mother of 5. I'm pretty sure there are a lot of feministic views you have, which are out there. And then we just started talking about our responsibility as mothers or as parents with our spouses, and it's massive. And if you really see that, to me sometimes it's so scary about how much of a responsibility I have from not just for Sydney and Marlon, but for the whole society, because they're going to be a big part. And I believe that whatever our kids are going to be confronted with has nothing to do with what we see today. It's going to be a lot more challenging.
I agree,
So we have, from my perspective, we have to raise them to be even more critical, even more empathetic, even more open. Although on the other hand, it might be a lot more painful, because being open and soft also means that you're open to whatever comes, and but that's going to be a big challenge. So
but also teaching them how to fight and have grit and be tough,
and stand up,
because sometimes the opposition isn't going to be touchy-feely and soft and caring. They're going to be ruthless, and still have an open heart, be tough with an open heart. That's the most challenging thing.
Wow.
Indeed.
Wow, wonderful talking to you, Charlie.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Oh, cute. Great talk. Wow. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Und danke, dass ihr dabei wart, und einen wunderschönen Tag. Bitte gerne Kommentare und abonnieren und liken und sharen und überhaupt, damit wir so wundervolle Menschen wie Charlie noch mehr eine Plattform geben können, mit ihrem Herz sich zu zeigen. Danke, tschüss.